They smiled in Bali while my father forgot how to breathe. I sent them money, paid every bill, every emergency. Thought I was doing the right thing until I came home, unannounced, and found the man who raised me abandoned on life support. My mother and siblings, poolside sipping cocktails. That was the moment I saw the truth. I was never family. I was a wallet. So I froze the account. And that one click, it didn't just end their vacation. It started a reckoning. You think betrayal hurts. Let me show you what it feels like when blood turns its back. The cab turned slowly onto my childhood street, the kind of place that always looked like it was holding its breath. Sacramento hadn't changed in 3 years, not really. The cracked sidewalks still ran alongside weather-beaten fences. The corner house still had its rusted wind chimes, tinkling like broken promises. And the trees? Bare, stark, like they too had given up pretending this neighborhood was home. I stared out the window, the skyline of Seattle still haunting the edges of my memory. I'd left that city exhausted, spent from double shifts and soul-crushing overtime with a single thought keeping me upright. I'd finally see Dad. I could already picture his smile. Surprised, wide, warm. I clutched the gift bag on my lap tighter. Inside was a bottle of his favourite cologne and an envelope with a few hundred in cash. Not much, but enough to say, I remember, I care. The cab slowed in front of the house. I blinked. It looked different, smaller than I remembered. No porch light, no garden gnome at the steps. The lawn had turned yellow from neglect. I stepped out, heart thudding, expecting a dog's bark. Maybe Grace's voice yelling something snide through the window. Nothing, just wind and silence. I stood at the door I'd paid to repaint 2 summers ago, knocked once, then twice. No answer. I tried the doorbell, dead. I pulled out my phone, thumb hovering over Mom's number. Then Liam's, then Grace's. All 3 went straight to voicemail. I frowned. Maybe they were out? But the whole house looked sealed shut, curtains drawn, driveway empty, not a hint of life. "Hey, Elena!" The voice startled me. Across the street, a woman pushing a stroller waved. I squinted. "Jenna?" She nodded, smile friendly. "Wow, it's been years. You look tired." I gave a tight smile. "Just got in. Thought I'd surprise my dad." Her expression changed slightly. She walked a little closer, her voice lowering. "They're not home. Left a few days ago. Big family trip. Bali or something. Didn't you go with them?" She said it casually, like the word Bali wasn't a brick to my chest. I felt the air leave my lungs. "Bali?" "Yeah. Whole crew. Your mum, Liam, Grace. I figured you were meeting them there or something." I tried to laugh, but it stuck somewhere behind my ribs. "No one told me." Jenna's smile faltered. "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought—" Her voice trailed off. She adjusted her grip on the stroller like the moment made her uncomfortable. "Oh, your dad. He's okay, right? Ambulance came a couple weeks ago. He collapsed in the yard, I think. They took him to County General." My world tilted. "What?" "Yeah, scary stuff. I meant to text someone but wasn't sure who. I hope he's all right." I nodded numbly, murmured a thank you, and turned back toward the street. "Back to the airport?" the cab driver asked. I shook my head. "No, County General." As the cab rolled away, I watched the house disappear behind me. That house. I'd kept it alive, paid the bills, funded the remodels, sent thousands from my tiny apartment in Seattle, believing I was protecting something sacred. Now, it looked like a tomb. The drive to County General was a blur. I stared out at downtown lights, holiday garlands blinking like lies. People walked arm in arm on the sidewalks, laughing, whole. I was unravelling, quietly, one thread at a time. Inside the hospital, the fluorescent lights felt colder than the December wind. I gave the receptionist my father's name. She typed for a moment, then looked up. "Robert Miles, 6th floor ICU." "Is anyone with him?" My voice cracked. She hesitated. No, no visitors in the log. You're his daughter? I nodded. Good, she said gently. I'm glad you came. It's been 2 weeks. 2 weeks, alone. I rode the elevator up, my heart lodged somewhere between fury and fear. I didn't know what I'd find. I didn't know how to prepare. But I knew one thing. Whatever waited behind that door, I would face it alone, just like he had. The elevator doors parted with a reluctant sigh. The 6th floor smelled like bleach and waiting. That sterile scent that clung to every surface, floors too clean to feel real, walls too blank to offer comfort. Overhead, fluorescent lights buzzed like angry insects, casting everything in a pale, clinical glow. Nurses moved quickly, their eyes tired, voices hushed. Somewhere nearby, a monitor beeped with machine precision, steady, impersonal, endless. I approached the front desk. "Robert Miles," I said, my voice low. The nurse glanced at her screen, then nodded. "Room 623, she said. "He's stable, but still unresponsive. Has anyone visited?" She hesitated. "He's had no visitors since he was admitted. You're the first." My stomach turned. "He's been here 2 weeks." She nodded again, softer this time. "The hospital contacted the next of kin listed, your mother, I believe, but no one came." Something inside me cracked, not with sound, not all at once, just a deep, quiet fracture, like ice beneath your feet. Room 623 was at the end of the hall, the door slightly ajar. I pushed it open slowly. The sight hit me like a punch to the chest. My father, once tall, proud, unshakable, looked impossibly small in the hospital bed. Tubes snaked from his nose and arms. A ventilator hissed at his side. His skin was pale, lips tinged blue, eyes shut in a sleep that looked too close to goodbye. Machines blinked around him, blinking away the hours he couldn't count. I stepped closer, barely breathing. "Dad," I whispered. Nothing. I took his hand. It felt cold, fragile, like something borrowed from another lifetime. The calluses I remembered from childhood, when he fixed bikes and lifted me like I weighed nothing, were still there, faded but real. I traced them with my thumb, my eyes burning. "I'm here," I said, choking on the words. "I made it." The silence answered with its hum of machines, steady, uncaring. I sat beside him, not knowing what to say, not knowing if he could hear anything at all. I wanted to scream, to cry, to shake him awake, but all I could do was sit, hold his hand, and feel the weight of everything that had been stolen from both of us. The door creaked open. A doctor stepped in, a man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes dulled by too many hard conversations. "You're Elena?" he asked. I nodded. "I'm Dr. Patel, your father's attending. I wish we were meeting under better circumstances." Is he going to wake up?" He didn't sugarcoat it. "We're monitoring, but the prognosis is unclear. His brain activity is minimal. He collapsed outside. By the time paramedics got him here, he'd lost oxygen for several minutes." I swallowed. "Has anyone been in touch? My family?" He checked his notes. "We called the emergency contact listed, Sandra Miles, on the day of admission, left 3 messages, no response. We assumed there was a delay in travel, but no one came." A chill ran down my spine. "So they knew?" "Yes," he said quietly. "From the beginning." It felt like betrayal all over again, just colder, more permanent. They hadn't just gone on vacation, they'd abandoned him. Left him to die alone while I was 1,000 miles away thinking everything was okay. I thanked the doctor with a voice that wasn't mine. When he left, I turned back to Dad. His chest rose and fell to the rhythm of a machine, a rhythm that didn't belong to him. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I should have come sooner." He didn't move, didn't flinch. But something in the room shifted, something internal. like the part of me that had held on to hope had finally let go. I laid my forehead gently against the back of his hand, and for the first time in years I cried, not for what was lost, but for what had never been given. The next morning I sat at the hospital cafe, untouched tea growing cold between my palms. Dad was still unconscious. The machine still hummed, the nurses still tiptoed, and I was still reeling, caught somewhere between fury and grief. I hadn't slept, not really. My eyes were dry, but my chest ached in that familiar, invisible way grief always begins, slow, suffocating. I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app. I hadn't checked it in a while, maybe a week, maybe more. Work had consumed me, as usual. 12-hour shifts, night calls, overtime traded for time off I never took. I didn't work for luxury. I worked for them. Every month, like clockwork, I wired $1,500 home. No one asked me to, not out loud. But there was always a need, a roof that needed fixing, a medication Dad couldn't afford. Liam's car breaking down again, Grace struggling with her rent after quitting yet another job. And Mum, she was the queen of silent pressure. Her sighs said more than words ever could. I scrolled back through the transfers. 3 years of silent sacrifice. Over $54,000 sent from a one-bedroom apartment in Seattle where I lived off ramen and skipped vacations. And what did I get in return? A locked door, an empty house, and a father left to die alone. I stared at the numbers. I could remember each one like a scar. June the 3rd, 2021, $2,300. Roof repair before rainy season. September 15th, 2022, found $800. New brakes for Liam's car. Jan 8th, 2023, $1,500. Dad's heart meds urgent. All of it made sense, or so I thought, until I looked deeper. The last 4 transfers, more than $6,000 in total, were tagged utilities and credit card payments. But when I checked the electric company's app, the bills had already been paid by autodraft. Then the phone company also paid. My stomach tightened. I dug further, called the insurance company listed in one transfer. Sandra Miles? The agent asked. Yes, the policy was cancelled last year. What? The payments I'd sent weren't going to utilities. They were rerouted, used for something else entirely. I switched to my email, searched for receipts I hadn't opened. Buried between newsletters and work memos were bank statements, credit alerts, and a line item I hadn't authorised. Boutique jewellery, $1,297.55, 2 days after I sent the January transfer. Then came another, spa retreat reservation, $1,920.14. That one hit like a slap. Dated 1 week before Dad collapsed, the same week they flew to Bali. My throat went dry. They'd been using my money, not for survival, not for Dad, but for indulgence. I felt like I was unravelling, like the woman I had been, the dutiful daughter, the provider, the fixer, was crumbling into dust. I'd believed love meant sacrifice, that if I just gave more, tried harder, they'd see me. But the truth was colder, crueler. They didn't see me at all. I was a bank account, an invisible ATM with a heartbeat. I glanced around the cafe, people talking softly, sipping overpriced lattes, living their uncomplicated lives. I wanted to scream. Instead, I opened my notebook, drew a line down the centre of the page. One side I labelled given, the other received. Under given, I listed it all, $54,000. Time. Mental health, missed promotions. Lost friendships. My 20s under received. Silence, guilt, lies, abandonment. I stared at the imbalance. It wasn't just unfair. It was deliberate. And it was time to stop pretending otherwise. I stepped outside the hospital, the sky an overcast grey that matched the weight in my chest. My fingers trembled slightly as I pulled out my phone. I had stayed silent long enough. I needed answers, needed to hear something that made this nightmare make sense. I dialed Mom first. She answered on the second ring, her voice loud with background laughter and music. "Elena?" "Yeah," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I'm in Sacramento, at the hospital." A pause. Then, "Why?" "Because Dad's here. He's in ICU. He's on life support." Another pause. I could hear the clink of ice in a glass. "He didn't want to come with us. You know how dramatic he gets." I blinked. "He collapsed in the yard, Mom. A neighbour had to call an ambulance. He hasn't been conscious in 2 weeks." "Oh, for God's sake," she sighed. "Eleanor, you don't understand how hard it is to keep this family running. You're not here. You don't deal with Liam's mess, or Grace's mood swings, or the mortgage." "I've been paying the mortgage," I cut in. "For years. Every month." She went quiet. Then her voice came back sharper. "You're always so sensitive. Your father was never strong. He'd rather lie in a bed than face real life. You're just like him, overreacting." My jaw clenched. "He's dying," she scoffed. "He'll pull through. He always does. We needed a break, Elena. That's not a crime." I hung up before I said something that would scorch the rest of my soul. My hands shook as I called Liam next. He picked up mid-yawn. "Maya?" "It's Elena," I snapped. "Dad's in the hospital, ICU. He's barely breathing." "Yeah, Mom told me," he said casually. So, you're on a beach in Bali while he's unconscious in a hospital bed." "Relax. We all needed this trip. You think you're the only one who's stressed?" "You left him," I shouted. "You knew, and you left him alone." "You're being emotional," he said coldly. "He'll be fine. Chill out. Handle it. You're good at that." The line went dead, just like that. I stared at the phone in disbelief. It didn't hurt like a wound. It hurt like truth. They didn't care. They never did. A ping interrupted my thoughts, a message from an unknown number. "Grace, stop calling. Don't ruin this for us. You always make everything about you." I sat down hard on the nearest bench, the phone limp in my hand. My own sister, the one I helped move into her first apartment, the one I stayed up all night with during her first panic attack, the one who called me crying when her boyfriend left and I Venmo'd her $200 to go get sushi and forget him. She blocked my number, just like that. I stared into the grey sky, watching a single leaf spin in circles on the pavement. Everything was spinning. My world, my breath, my understanding of what family was supposed to mean. I wasn't angry anymore. I was emptied out. Like they'd reached into my chest and taken every last part of me that still hoped. I sat in the hospital's family lounge, the kind of sterile space meant to look inviting but felt anything but. Plastic chairs, vending machines that swallowed your money, a TV playing muted news. The kind of place that asked for your patience but never offered peace. My laptop glowed in my lap as I logged into the joint account. My name listed first, like a twisted joke. I'd stopped checking it regularly months ago, trusting they'd at least be responsible. That trust was about to get buried. Balance, $4,227.13. 3 weeks ago, it was over $35,000. My stomach dropped. I scrolled through the transaction history, my pulse spiking with every line item. 1,920 tals. Serenity Springs Spa, 3,801 tals. Pacific Sky Resort, Bali, 714 tals. First class upgrade, LAX to DPS, 2,486 tals. Lux Timepieces, San Francisco, 978 tals. Moet and Chandon, private cruise. It didn't stop. Every day, some new insult, cocktail bars, boutique handbags, yoga retreats, even a single $330 charge for silk pajamas at an airport boutique. They were living like royalty, on my sweat, on my hours, on my life. And I was sitting in a hospital, watching our father slip further away, alone. I scrolled faster, the numbers swimming. I couldn't breathe. I pulled up a spreadsheet listing each charge, categorizing them out of habit, like somehow if I named the theft, it would hurt less. Then something else caught my eye. Credit card payment. $2,100. Applied to new account. I frowned. I didn't have a new account. I switched tabs, pulled up my credit report through a monitoring service I rarely used, and there it was, a new credit card issued under my name, opened 3 weeks ago. The billing address? My parents' home. The authorized user? Sandra Miles. My mouth went dry. She hadn't just spent the money I gave. She created a new line of credit, fraudulently, in my name. My mother. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. The betrayal wasn't just emotional now. It was legal, tangible, documented. The room swam. My ears rang. I felt like I was underwater, like my limbs had stopped listening. I stood up too fast, bumping into the edge of a chair. A nurse looked over, concerned. I mumbled something, stepped out into the hallway, leaned against the wall. How could they? How could she? This wasn't careless spending or impulsive indulgence. This was identity theft, fraud. It was deliberate, planned. I slid down the wall, sitting on the cold tile floor, phone in one hand, the other pressed to my forehead. I wanted to scream, but all that came out was a thin, shaky breath. I had worked for everything, paid every bill, sacrificed every joy, and they had gutted me in return, without hesitation, without apology. My hands trembled as I opened the bank app again. The options stared back at me. Freeze account, owner access only. My finger hovered over it, just for a second. Not yet. Not until I had everything documented. I clicked download transaction history. Then I took screenshots of the credit card records. Then I created a folder titled Evidence, Family Theft. It was no longer just about protecting myself. It was about reclaiming what little I still had. I stared at the glowing button on my phone screen for a long time. Freeze account, owner access only. It wasn't just a financial move, it was a final break, a declaration that the invisible lifeline they had been feeding off was now cut. I inhaled sharply, thumb hovering, then I exhaled and tapped. Confirmation, your account has been successfully frozen. Just like that, it was done. One click and years of sacrifice, guilt and obligation were severed. I wasn't their ATM anymore. Mum must have noticed quickly. Less than 10 minutes passed before my phone buzzed violently with her name on the screen. I ignored it. It rang again. Then came the text. How dare you? We are your family. You owe us everything. This is betrayal, you ungrateful little brat. Your father would be ashamed. The venom didn't sting like it used to. It didn't even cut. It clarified. Her words weren't rooted in love. They were rooted in control. I blocked the number. But that peace was short-lived. The next day, while getting coffee in the hospital cafeteria, I checked my mailbox back home remotely. I had notifications from a document service I used for digital mail scans. There was one new envelope flagged, Urgent Collection Notice. I opened the scan. It was a formal notice from a debt collector demanding payment of $6,800 for a line of credit I had no memory of authorizing. My chest tightened. I read it twice, then downloaded the attached agreement. And there it was, my name, my social security number, my forged signature. Twist of bile hit my throat. They didn't stop at stealing what I gave. They faked documents, signed in my name, assumed I'd never look, or worse, assumed I'd stay silent. I forwarded the notice to my personal email, marked it, then pulled up the police department's fraud reporting portal. I wasn't ready to submit yet, but I needed the form. I needed the structure. I needed to see there was a path to accountability. Back at Dad's room, the machine beside his bed beeped steadily. I sat beside him again, this time not just as a daughter, but as a woman pushed past her limit. I know you tried to protect me, I whispered, but I think I need to protect both of us now. I spent the next 3 hours gathering everything, PDFs, screenshots, documents, mail scans. I opened a new spreadsheet, legal case, Sandra Miles et al. I categorized each entry: fraudulent activity, credit misuse, personal messages, proof of abandonment, every receipt, every notification, every word they ever wrote that might help prove they saw me as a tool, not a child. Then I backed it all up to an encrypted cloud drive. This wasn't about revenge. It was about drawing the line, about making sure they could never do this to me or anyone else again. That night, I sat in the hospital parking lot, engine off, air thick and unmoving. I looked up at the stars, blurry through the tears I refused to let fall. They'd taken so much: my time, my money, my name, but not my voice, not any more. The email came just after dawn, slipping into my inbox with the cold precision of legal language. Subject: confidential. Amendment to will, Robert Miles. I stared at it, heart suddenly thudding in my throat. It was from Mr. Alcott, Dad's longtime attorney. We'd only spoken twice, once during a brief holiday visit years ago, and again after Dad's minor heart scare. But I remembered his firm voice and the way he always addressed people by their full names, like the truth required formality. I opened the message with trembling fingers. Dear Ms. Elena Miles, please find attached the notarized amendment to your father's will, executed 8 weeks prior to his current hospitalization. This document supersedes all previous directives. I clicked on the PDF. And there it was. Dad's signature. Clear, deliberate, undeniable. I, Robert Miles, being of sound mind and body, hereby appoint Elena Miles as the sole decision-maker and executor over all medical and financial matters in the event of my incapacitation. I hereby revoke and nullify any previous authority granted to Sandra Miles, Liam Miles, and Grace Miles regarding my estate, medical care, or assets. It was like the air had changed in the room. I didn't know whether to cry or exhale. He had seen this coming. He had prepared. And in doing so, he had chosen me. I scrolled down, half in disbelief, half in awe, until a paragraph near the end made my blood run cold. This decision is made with clarity and full understanding, based on recent verbal statements made by Sandra Miles in my presence, including but not limited to, "You're better off dead. The insurance payout would do more good than you ever have." These words, among others, have informed my legal reassignment of authority. I dropped the tablet. The sentence echoed in my ears. "You're better off dead." How many times had I seen Mum sigh when Dad forgot his medication? How often did she roll her eyes when he asked a question twice? I thought it was stress, fatigue, but it had been disdain, and maybe something darker. This wasn't neglect, this was contempt, willful, calculated disregard. I picked up the tablet again, rereading every line, every legal term, as if my life depended on it. In some ways, it did. Dad had seen them for who they were, not in one dramatic moment, but in the slow, creeping way truth reveals itself through daily indifference. He didn't just rewrite a document, he rewrote the ending. He gave me the power to make sure he wouldn't be forgotten, or used, or discarded. I sat there for minutes, absorbing the weight of it all. This wasn't just authority, it was trust, responsibility, a final act of faith between a father and the one person who had never stopped showing up. And now it was my move. 2 hours later, I was back in the hospital lounge, the will open in one window, a legal intake form in another. I had printed out everything: Dad's amended will, the forged credit records, the screenshots of bank transactions. I needed more than emotion now, I needed law. I called the number listed in the email signature. "Law Offices of Alcott and Breen, this is Marianne speaking." "This is Elena Miles," I said. "I need to speak with Mr. Alcott. It's about Robert Miles's case. He'll know." She paused, then said, "Please hold." Less than a minute passed before his voice came through, calm and familiar. "Elena, I was hoping you'd call. I got the will. I need your help." "You'll have it," he said. "Tell me everything." I outlined what had happened, my father's hospitalization, my family's absence, the spending, the fraud. When I mentioned the forged credit line in my name, his voice changed. "That's criminal," he said flatly, "and admissible. We'll need documentation, witnesses, if possible." I have screenshots. I also have texts. I opened the thread with my mother. The last few messages read like a case study in coercion. "You owe us more than you know. You think freezing the account makes you better? He'd be ashamed of you. You want a war, Eleanor? You'll get one." I forwarded them all to Mr. Alcott's secure email. "There's more," I added. "It's not just the house or the checking account. My dad had something else, I think." "What makes you say that?" I hesitated. "He used to keep a red notebook. I haven't found it yet, but I know he kept track of everything. Investments, retirement funds, stuff Mum always dismissed." Alcott went quiet for a moment. He and I spoke about a trust, something separate from the estate. "Do you have access to his personal safe?" "No," I said slowly, "but I know where the key is." I returned to the house later that day. It felt different now, not like a home, but like a crime scene. I walked past the dead plants and into the back study. The safe was tucked behind a false panel in the floor beneath Dad's desk. He'd shown me once when I was 16, after my first paycheck. "Always have something they can't touch," he'd said. The key was where it had always been, hidden inside an old military medal case on the bookshelf. I unlocked the safe. Inside was the red notebook. It was worn, edges frayed, spine cracked from years of use. I opened it with reverence. Page after page, detailed accounts, codes, deposits, handwritten notes on stock performance, details of a trust created 6 years ago under a corporate shell name. It was real. And the balance? $312,000. My hand flew to my mouth. It wasn't just about legacy. He'd prepared a shield, not just for himself, but for whoever had the strength to stand alone. Now I knew why they were panicking, why Mom had turned venomous, why Grace blocked me, why Liam shrugged at our father's breath slipping away. They thought the money would die with him. But he had already passed it on, not in words, in trust. The courthouse was a weathered old building nestled between City Hall and a law firm with too much glass. It didn't look powerful, but I knew it held the weight of judgment. That morning, as I stepped through the doors wearing the only black blazer I owned, I didn't feel strong. I felt resolved. The courtroom was already half full. My mother sat at the far side, her posture rigid, eyes narrowed beneath perfectly shaped brows. She wore beige, always beige, as if pretending neutrality could cover what she'd done. Liam sat beside her, checking his phone with a casualness that made my skin crawl. Their lawyer, a sharp-chinned man named Dreyfus, adjusted his cuffs like he was preparing for a Broadway performance. Mr. Alcott sat next to me, calm and unreadable. "Let them talk first," he said quietly. "Then we dismantle it." When the judge entered, everyone stood. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Court is now in session," Dreyfus was first. "Your Honour, we are here because our client, Mrs. Sandra Miles, is gravely concerned about her daughter's mental state. Ms. Elena Miles has taken drastic legal and financial actions against her own family, including freezing shared accounts and denying medical access. We believe she is acting out of emotional instability, not logic." I kept my eyes forward. Let him spin. "She has a history of anxiety," Dreyfus continued, "was hospitalized briefly in college. There is a pattern." "Objection," Alcott said without looking up. "Irrelevant to the current case. We are here to assess Mr. Robert Miles's will and medical authority." The judge raised a brow. "Sustained. Keep it to the facts, Mr. Dreyfus." He shifted but nodded. "Of course." Now it was our turn. Alcott stood, adjusting his glasses. "We have here the most recent notarized will of Robert Miles, which revokes all prior authority from Sandra, Liam and Grace Miles. We also submit financial records proving that Ms. Eleanor Miles provided full financial support to the household for 3 years, totaling over $54,000. He clicked the remote. A projector displayed a spreadsheet. Each line was dated, categorized, and annotated with receipts. The room shifted with the sound of uncomfortable movement. "And here," Alcott continued, handing documents to the bailiff, "is a signed letter from Mr. Miles addressed to his daughter, explaining his decision to name her sole executor due to negligence and emotional abuse from the other parties involved." Dreyfus tried to object, but the judge raised her hand. "I'll allow it. Continue, Mr. Alcott." "And lastly," Alcott said, turning toward the gallery, "we submit new evidence. Security camera footage provided by a neighbour, dated 10 days before Mr. Miles's collapse. The screen lit up. There, in grainy footage, was my father in the front yard. He stumbled twice, then sat on the porch. The timestamp showed 20 minutes past. No one came out. No one helped. The door stayed shut. Then my mother walked outside, glanced at him, rolled her eyes and walked back in, letting the screen door slam. There was a gasp. Not from me, from someone in the audience. The judge leaned forward. "Have the defendants seen this?" "They have now," Alcott said coolly. The judge said nothing for several seconds, then she looked at me. "Ms. Miles, do you have anything you'd like to add?" I stood, my hands steady for the first time in days. "No, Your Honour," I said. "I believe my father already said everything that mattered. I'm just here to carry it through." She nodded slowly. "Then I will recess briefly before rendering judgment." The recess lasted 15 minutes, but it felt like an hour. When the judge returned, she sat with deliberate calm, her eyes scanning the courtroom as if weighing the souls behind the silence. The gavel hadn't dropped yet, but the verdict was in her eyes. Dreyfus made one last desperate attempt. "Your Honour, before judgment is passed, I request to submit a psychological evaluation from Elena Miles's college years. She was hospitalized for depressive symptoms following an academic suspension. We believe this history shows a pattern of instability that may impact her ability to manage critical decisions." "Objection," Alcott interjected immediately. "Again, irrelevant. We're discussing present legal capacity and a valid notarized will, not decade-old medical records." The judge narrowed her eyes. "Mr. Dreyfus, are you asserting that a mental health history automatically disqualifies someone from being a caregiver or executor?" He hesitated. "Not inherently, but it provides context." The judge leaned back. "The only context I see is a pattern of diversion. Ms. Miles's college experience is not on trial. Her actions in the past 3 years are. And from the evidence presented, they show responsibility, consistency, and sacrifice." Dreyfus sat down, lips thin with frustration. Liam leaned toward him, whispering something that earned only a slight shake of the lawyer's head. The judge turned to the courtroom. "This is not a case of simple family conflict. This is a case of abandonment, financial misconduct, and emotional exploitation. The will is clear, the intent is indisputable, and, frankly, the behaviour of the opposing parties is shameful." Silence. Not even a cough. "I hereby grant Elena Miles full and exclusive conservatorship over Robert Miles's medical care and estate. Effective immediately, Sandra Miles, Liam Miles, and Grace Miles are barred from accessing any related assets, accounts, or legal authority without court approval." She paused. "Furthermore, any suspicion of financial fraud is to be referred to law enforcement for independent investigation." The gavel struck once, sharp, final. It was over. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I stood slowly, gathered my documents, and walked past the row where my mother sat frozen, jaw clenched. Liam stared at the floor. Grace was nowhere in sight. Outside the courthouse, the air hit crisp and clean. It was like I'd taken my first real breath in years. Alcott caught up to me at the steps. "You did well," he said. "I didn't win this for me," I replied. "Not really." He nodded. "I know." Later that week, I met with a financial planner and filed the paperwork to establish the Robert Miles Dignity Fund, a charitable foundation that would support elderly patients abandoned in public hospitals. The funds came entirely from Dad's hidden investment account. I didn't keep a dollar for myself. Twist wasn't just in the courtroom. It was in the choice to walk away from revenge and build something that would outlive all of them. At the foundation's small launch event, I spoke briefly, not about betrayal, but about worth, about how dignity wasn't earned through perfection, but preserved through presence, and how one man, abandoned by everyone except his daughter, still chose to believe the best in someone. That someone was me. People cried, not because the story was sad, but because it was real, raw, familiar. I didn't need applause. Their silence said enough. The memorial was quiet, no grand speeches, no velvet ropes, no floral arches, just a rented hall behind the Veterans Garden, a few rows of folding chairs, and a wooden podium set beneath a canopy of bare oak branches. Dad would have liked it that way. No pretense, no wasted expense. 7 chairs were filled. Mr. Alcott, 2 of Dad's nurses, a neighbour who called 911, one of his army buddies who drove 3 hours after seeing the obituary online, a retired groundskeeper from the community centre who once said Dad fixed his fence for free, and me. There were no glossy programmes, just a framed photo of Dad in his military blues, standing straight-backed with a calm strength that once made me feel invincible. Beside the photo, I placed a simple plaque. The Robert Miles Dignity Fund, for those left behind, by one who was. I hadn't sent any invitations to my mother, Liam, or Grace. Some absences were chosen. But as I stepped to the podium and looked up, I saw them. Beyond the low iron gate, 2 figures lingered on the sidewalk. My mother wearing a coat too thin for the wind. Liam standing beside her in navy, jaw clenched like a boy denied a toy he thought was his. They tried to walk in. The security guard, hired specifically for this possibility, intercepted them before they reached the gravel path. "This is a private event," he said, voice even. "We're his family," Mom snapped. "Not on the list," the guard replied calmly. "No entry." Their argument didn't carry. The door shut before her voice could turn theatrical. Inside, the silence felt warm. I took a breath, looking at the photo. "My father never asked for much," I began. "Just presence. Just respect. Just dignity. And in the end, even those were denied him." I glanced around the room. Real people who had shown up, not because they had to, but because they cared. He didn't have a crowd, but he had character. And character doesn't need applause. It just needs memory, action, continuity. My voice didn't shake, not even when I said what had been building for years. Ties of blood can be shallow. Ties of choice, of action, are deeper. Family isn't who shares your name. It's who stays when staying is hard. A long pause. No one clapped. They didn't need to. The truth settled heavier than sound. I stepped down and sat, my hands still. Outside, I glimpsed the shadow of my mother turning away, face unreadable. Liam followed. I didn't look back. After the final words had been spoken and the chairs began to empty, I stepped toward the coat rack near the exit. Hanging from the wooden hook was my father's old army jacket. Dark green, a little worn at the elbows, the fabric still held the faintest trace of his cologne, cedar and soap. The scent hit me like a memory I didn't know I'd been holding back. In my hand was a small, folded envelope. Inside it, a letter I had written the night before. It wasn't poetic or polished. It was raw, honest, a simple thank you to the man who had carried so much, said so little, and in the end, trusted me when everyone else vanished. I slipped the envelope into the inside pocket of his jacket. It was my goodbye, not grand, not loud, but mine. The last of the guests passed me with quiet nods. No one lingered. No one tried to make grief tidy. They just offered their presence, and that was enough. As the last footsteps faded into gravel, I sat on the bench near the trees, jacket still in hand. The wind carried the scent of rosemary from the memorial garden, a sharpness that made the world feel clean, even in sorrow. I thought that was the end of it, until a soft voice broke the silence. "Miss Miles?" I looked up. One of the ICU nurses from Dad's hospital stood a few steps away, her hands clasped around a small white envelope. "I meant to give this to you earlier," she said. "He asked me to hold it, just in case." She handed it to me gently. My name was written on the front in his handwriting. Not Elena, not Kiddo, just for you. I swallowed hard and opened it. His handwriting filled the page, uneven, deliberate. Each word looked like it had cost him effort, and he had made it anyway. "If you're reading this, then you came. And if you came, then I was right to believe in you. I saw what the others wouldn't. I saw how you gave when no one thanked you. I saw how you never asked for credit, just a chance to be seen. I'm sorry for what I let slide. I'm sorry I didn't protect you sooner. But I see now. I see everything. Thank you for not letting them erase me. Thank you for not letting them erase you. Dad." I read it twice, then a third time. Not because I didn't believe it, but because part of me had waited my entire life to be told, "I see you." A single tear slipped down my cheek. Not for what I'd lost, but for what had finally been restored. He saw me, and in seeing me, he saved me. 6 weeks later, the George Miles Dignity Fund opened its first case file. A woman named Margaret, 72, found unconscious in a park, had no one to claim her. No family, no visitors, no voice. The hospital flagged her as non-responsive and indigent. But our foundation didn't care about insurance status. We cared that she existed, that she had dignity. Her hospital bed was covered in a soft blue blanket we donated. Her name was printed on a card, taped gently above her head. That was how it started. Quiet, small, real. The foundation didn't make headlines. It didn't need to. It made change. I named it not after his rank or service or sacrifice, but after his humanity, the thing they'd tried to strip from him, the thing he never stopped giving to others, even when his own family forgot he mattered. Back in Seattle, my apartment looked the same, but everything felt different. I bought a new table, a used one, with mismatched chairs that didn't pretend to be a set. I painted one wall soft green. I kept my job, but requested part-time, enough to live, enough to build. There was no more guilt, no more midnight transfers, no more wondering if I was enough. On the kitchen wall, just above the counter, I hung a photo of Dad, not the formal one from the military, but the candid one, him in the backyard, holding a burger in one hand, a beer in the other, laughing at something Grace had said before she stopped calling me. Beneath it, I framed a quote I wrote by hand. "Dignity is not negotiable." And I looked at it every morning while making coffee. It reminded me that the worst thing they ever did wasn't the money or the lies. It was making me believe I didn't matter. Now I knew better. Now I began again. The envelope came on a rainy Tuesday. No return address. Just my name in block letters and a Seattle postmark. I opened it slowly, half expecting another legal form, another memory clawing its way back in. But inside was a handwritten letter. The ink was faded slightly, the strokes deliberate. "Ms. Miles, you don't know me, but your father saved my life. 32 years ago, I was a young man with nothing. No job, no home, no hope. I met Robert Miles at a shelter where he volunteered. He gave me a meal, then a ride, then a phone number of someone hiring dishwashers. That job turned into a life. I've followed the headlines quietly. When I saw what you built in his name, I knew it was my turn. Please accept the enclosed check as the beginning of my commitment to the Dignity Fund, and thank you for remembering the kind of man the world tries to forget. With respect, Benjamin L. Harris. Folded behind the letter was a check, $25,000. I sat down hard, the paper trembling in my hands. My father had given to a man most would have walked past, and decades later that man gave back, not to him, but to the world he once saved. It was the full circle kind of twist no writer could plan. That night, I cooked dinner in silence, the kitchen warm with garlic and olive oil. After the dishes were done, I pulled a sticky note from the drawer and wrote 6 words in blue ink. Love deeply, let go loudly. I stuck it on the fridge. It wasn't just a reminder, it was a map. The next morning I took a walk around Green Lake. Dogs chased ducks, toddlers threw breadcrumbs, joggers passed with earbuds in. Everyone was living, moving, being, and so was I. No more checking my phone for their messages, no more waiting for them to become someone they never were. At some point, you stop grieving what someone couldn't give and start building what they never deserved to take. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up, who stay, who see you when others look away, and maybe, just maybe, it's the person you become when you finally choose yourself. So now I'll ask you what I asked myself months ago. Have you ever been the invisible one in your own family? What did you do when no one came? What would you do now? Tell me. Because your story matters. You matter.